everyone. Ariel Adams here with the aBlogtoWatch Superlative Podcast. Please listen to our other podcast, aBlogtoWatch Weekly, where we talk about the latest watch news and reviews. Today on Superlative, my guest is Giovanni Moro. He's the founder of Unimatic in Milan. Giovanni, welcome.
Thank you very much, Ariel, for having us and for having me.
So I've been covering your brand maybe ever since you started, but I actually forget the exact year. Remind me, when did you found Unimatic?
Well, we started the business in 2015. And as you said, I think that since almost the very beginning, we managed to fetch your attention. And of course, we are very grateful. And then, of course, in the beginning, it was a little bit more than a game for me and Simone. And now, after 10 years, it developed into some small business, but like a proper one that we are trying to improve day after day.
Now, I have to ask the question, just based upon how you said that, is Unimatic your only business?
I mean, in these realms, yes. Then I have some other investment, but very unrelated to this field of expertise, let's say.
So I was in your office not too long ago in Milan, and you are, as you said, set up as a proper business. You have a separate store as well, and a thriving fan base and things like that. So I want to talk about really everything about you and maybe what you did well. And let's go back to 2015. I guess I remember when I first started seeing your watches, they immediately appealed to me. I think they appealed to other people as well. You remained quite consistent over this last decade. I guess I'd just like to know, what were you doing immediately before you started the watch brand?
Yeah, well, I speak plural because the story is quite similar for both Simone, that is my business partner and co-founder, and me.
Okay.
We were trained when we were young at Politecnico di Milano as industrial designers. And then we took each one his road in the professional world, meaning that I was working mainly in furniture and in the beginning in a company in Bergamo doing door handles and metal stuff that goes into furniture, while Simone moved to London and started to work in some 3D motion and graphics and whatnot design. And of course, we were in touch because we became friends during the years of the university. And one of the main topic of conversation when we were talking or when we were chatting, it was watches. We were, small collectors, so we were buying things out of eBay or Craigslist and stuff like that. And we had this, let's say, conversation about, I bought this one and I like this, but I don't like that. And I think that this should be made in a different way, or maybe the graphic design is off and blah, blah, blah. So this process that went on, maybe for 5-7 years, from the end of the school to the moment in which we decided to start Unimatic, very much contributed to build in both Simone and my own mind an image on how a watch that we did would have looked like. So at some point, and that's why I told you, we didn't start this as a business. There wasn't a business plan. The only goal for us when we started, it was to have a watch in metal that could physically embed all of the reasoning that we did in the previous year. And these translated into the Modello Uno and the first reference, Modello U1A. So that's more or less how we started. And also these perhaps give you an idea of the angle through which we look at watchmaking even today, because we are not watchmakers, we are not businessmen, We are people trained in industrial design that try to analyze everything under the keys and under the particular eyes of someone that is into industrial design. And maybe it shows also in the production, I hope.
Thank you for the explanation. Of course, there are many people who have an industrial design background who become romanced with the challenge of watches. You're absolutely right that not everyone who makes watches has an industrial design background, but watches are definitely a category within industrial design. And correct me if I'm wrong, within the context of industrial design, watches are indeed seen as a very advanced item. Even though theoretically anyone can do one, doing a good watch is considered a sort of a high-level kind of project for an industrial designer, right?
Well, I can just speak for myself, and I do think you're absolutely right, because you have a lot of constraints you cannot get around, and of course, it's even harder when you want to do a dive watch. Our first design was the Modello Uno, that is like the idea that we had for a diving watch, and also everything that we did afterward. Now we have 5 models in the lineup that then get a lot of differentiation and options, but all of them transversally are 300-meter water resistant, so 1,000 feet or more. So we kept for our game this constraint of having a certain thickness, of having, of course, a certain ergonomics quality to be able to fit on the wrist of the people. And then you have readability, and then you have, of course, some harmony in between the volume that compose the case and all of the parts that compose the watch all together. So I think it's very interesting challenge to do a watch under the designer, let's say, perspective. And of course, we are trying to do this without letting us into decorativism. I don't know if this is a word in English, but maybe you get it. I mean, it's not about applying some layer of decoration on things. That's what we don't like to do, while it's a job that is based on tiny, small, incremental improvement on this surface, this chamfer, this lettering that could be slightly bigger. And we're also speaking about something that is tiny in comparison to the scale of the human body and in comparison of the scale of the world. So it's a very, very nice challenge, and we are blessed with the opportunity of doing this as a 9-to-5 or a 9-to-9 job, actually.
I think it's because of the hobby, right? Because there's a watch hobby out there. There's people who are interested in that category a lot like you. And so that when you present them with something that they like, they want to buy it from you. And I think that that's very important to say, because today, as opposed to a few decades ago, you can get by just making a pretty watch. It used to be that you had to get by making a functional, good value proposition watch. Those were the most important things. Nowadays, what's most important is that people like how it looks. And that's quite different than the watch industry of a few decades ago. You agree, right?
Yeah, 100%. And we try, for us, to be honest, it comes quite natural because since we started everything as a game, of course, now I need to take care also of the balance sheet and we need to sell, but still the spirit, and I hope you will believe me, is the same spirit that we have on day one. So we are trying to keep the game, so to say, propagating itself, and we are trying to improve day by day everything that comes with the product. Of course, this is about design, yes, a lot, but then is about a lot of many other things that hopefully at some point embodies and the people can see in the finished product. So quality of the execution and the customer service and the shipping and whatnot. But everything is like a line and is an ongoing project in which day by day we try to bring something in the right direction. Maybe we are slow because we are small, but we have a clear direction to follow, and that's what we try to do day after day.
I want to, again, make a statement. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's important to sort of categorize you as not just an entrepreneur, but you are a watch lover who made a business out of your hobby. And that's the same story with many other people, but definitely not everyone in the watch industry. And I think it begins with a similar state. First, as you said, you became really obsessed with watches, and thankfully you had a friend so you could share that hobby with, and you explored. And you looked at a lot of watches, but then both of you realized that you had very specific tastes, and it was hard to find the perfect watch. So then you decide, hey, we have looked at watches now. We've talked at watches for so long. We have certain things we want that we can't find. Let's try to make it. And then that's the step I think you take that a lot of other watch lovers don't get to. Some are happy with the watches that exist and just wait for what comes out. Others say, oh, geez, I'd really like it if it had this look or that look. But then still fewer like you actually say, you know what? Let's actually try to build it. And then if it's successful, oh my gosh, maybe we can keep doing, you said the game, but it's a good point. It's sort of an exercise. It's sort of a iterative process, which never ends. Is what I'm saying sort of correct for your experience?
Yeah, well, you just said what I wanted to say if I was able to manage English as you are. But is almost perfect introduction to what we do daily.
Now, I think I immediately enjoyed your design aesthetic. Other people have as well. You mentioned sort of doing a lot of furniture as part of your career. And I think furniture is very good because it has to be very practical. There's a lot of, as you said, constraints you have to work with. And then ultimately, it's a very competitive field where your thing only looks slightly different than the other person's thing, and that can make a big difference. Do you feel that there was anything special about your furniture role that helped you in watches, that maybe helped you with the design, or maybe just inspiration? Because you have a very specific look, and I think for people who don't know you or are not initiated with your career, may not understand where your aesthetic actually came from.
I mean, yes, altogether. I think that both in the fact that Simone and me, we share like 99% of the time the same idea about this or that. And also the final output of the process. So in the end of the day, what the watch look like and what it feel like and whatnot, it's coming 100% from the experience, the small experience that we had before starting this. But even earlier, in the way of approaching industrial design, we were built from, young guys fresh out of the high school, thanks to the Politecnico di Milano. And these, I think it's also one of the assets, intangible assets, I don't know how to say, or the strike of luck that we had in growing up in Italy. Because as you may know, in this part of Italy, we are in Milano now, and in the northern side of Milano, we have plenty of small to medium company that do furniture or that do industrial machinery or they do lighting fixture. And each one of those, they share some kind of attitude toward industrial design. And this was something that automatically permeated, in a way, both Simone and Giovanni mindset when they were growing up as an industrial designer. And now our job is basically to translate this way of seeing things and of doing things into watchmaking. And as you said before, maybe this is not so common because I'm sure that there is a lot of persons that are in the watch business and they started like us from the passion and the hobby, trying to translate it into a business. But the very specific angle of looking at these as, tiny architecture in a way, that's most likely more rare in looking around. Then, of course, we have some very good example of very successful brands that have a similar approach, but maybe it's one of the few things that differentiate Unimatic from many other brands.
Thank you for all that. You talked about an attitude existing in many of the small companies, especially in the region around Milan. And I want to say that for me, one of the special things about Italy is this combination of having both incredible history and heritage, where you just have all kinds of nice stuff around, plus having this manufacturing culture. And it's for me, that's rare. I don't see a lot of places like that. You'd say in China, they have a really big manufacturing culture, but they may not be as readily surrounded by history, right? You have other places that have huge amounts of history and heritage, but they're not making that much stuff. In Italy, you have this combination that might not be unique in the world, but it's definitely uncommon. And I think that together maybe contributes to some of the attitude. But can you explain that attitude a little bit more? I think that's very interesting.
You have a very good point. The condition we were born in and in which we grow up, as you said, it's very particular, and especially in the watchmaking world, I think it marks a difference when, for example, you are born in Switzerland. I'm not saying that it's just good sides. There are also a lot of bad sides in doing business in Italy, but as to build the approach or the attitude, that was the word that maybe I nailed during this conversation. I think Italy, it's unique, and it's about the beauty and it's about the history that you just look around and find something. Yes, it's in the manufacturing industry that somehow still is strong and is going, and it contributes to build some mindset behind the actual factory or the worker that are skilled and whatnot. But at some point, this it translates into a physical and mental approach when it comes to produce something and to produce it in a certain way. And then there are many other elements that most likely they have their own influence, because we are in Milano, and Milano still it's a city that has a lot of things going on, for example, in the fashion industry. And so you are able to get, whether you like it or not, but some kind of hybridization with the fashion scene and with the fashion brand that are another example in which the manufacturing and the beauty or a certain way of intending the products converge. And then maybe it's also just about the Italian attitude for the regular people in the street, because in Milano in particular, you see a lot of people that is nicely dressed, that generally speaking has reached some kind of economical level, so they are able to indulge in small or slightly larger pleasure of life, most likely, most of the time without showing off this too much. So it's quite, subtle, and is not vulgar, or it's not like trying to display and trying to show off all the time. So if you take all of these and put them everything together into a blender, maybe you get some condition to do watches in a different way than if you were born, in Glashütte or in Geneva. Again, for the good and for the bad, of course. But we are trying to pointing out the good sides while doing the product. And then, of course, maybe we also fell into the bad one from time to time. I don't know.
Well, look, there might be downsides to making watches in Italy, but the reality is it's a very popular place for watch design. And I think that most people that get quite serious in watch design recognize that even in other countries, in Switzerland or France or Germany, there is a distinct Italianness when it comes to design. And what I mean by that is there's Italians working in Switzerland, often in design roles. There's a lot of the Italian culture, not just in Italy. And I think it's a very important element of today's watch industry. And then going to the other point that you made, if you'll allow me, I'd like to sort of distill things down. And what I've recognized in a lot of Italian manufacturing or product creation, it's almost as though it's immoral to make it ugly, right? So it's like, if you're going to make something, it's got to be pretty. So why even try? Yeah. It's a requirement no matter what you're making, whether it's fashion or furniture or timepieces. If you're going to do it, at the very least, at least it needs to look good while you're wearing it or using it, right?
Yeah, well, you have a point also on this. Again, switching back to the industrial designer, it should be good looking, but also functionally good for us and for many like-minded industrial designer to be a good product. And so in this case, even if functioning watches nowadays, it's a little bit on a second or third layer of why the people like and why the people get the watch, but still for us it's important. And so we try to keep both level up, so the form and the function, let's call it.
When I first noticed Unimatic, what I realized was a couple of things. And I don't know if this was on purpose or by accident, but the first thing I noticed is that you took some of the most popular watch archetypes, right? We're talking military style watches, especially dive style watches. And then you tried to create a simple rendering of the pure elements that you think were necessary to make it useful and nice. So you sort of distilled down what is already two very popular genres of watches. And to me, that was very smart because you had a built-in audience, because there's already a lot of people that like this core concept. They're going to see what you're doing, and it's going to be familiar enough that they immediately intellectually understand. They're not like, what is that company trying to do with that design? And that's obviously the case with many fresh designs. I think with the Modello Uno and pretty much everything you do, even someone who doesn't really understand watches can look at it and be like, oh, I totally get what they're doing with that. And I'm wondering if you agree, if that has anything to do with your success.
Well, the process you just outlined is exactly what we did and what we do nowadays. The only thing is that we didn't do this starting from the business perspective of having an audience that could receive this. But we started this way because, in our opinion, for this specific product, the wristwatch, you cannot start without deeply analyzing what has been done before. To give you an example, I can speak about the hammer or I can speak about the umbrella. If you want to design an umbrella or a hammer today, it's not that you can make it round or in a cone shape. You need to do it following a certain set of parameters that have been decided already and they have been tested already. So these it was a process that we went in, but starting from the idea of doing a good design work. And then, of course, 100% helped us to be able to resonate with people because, as you just said, most likely it's a category and it's some kind of a taste that is embedded already in a guy that is into watch. Yes, but that was coming as a cherry on top, because keep in mind that 100% in the beginning, our goal, it was to be able to have on our wrist the watch that we wanted to have, and then to sell the remaining one just for the sake of covering up the expenses we went through. So these are, and also the good success that we had, even if it was, of course, a very, very small initiative, gave us the strength of not giving up to this concept, and still nowadays not to orient ourselves based on what's trending, what the big brands do, or let's do the Pepsi bezel, or let's do the Tiffany dial. We do what we think is right to do, and then, of course, if people like it and if people buy it, we are even happier. But it's all about building that iterative process you helped me outline before.
Yeah, I think what you said is really crucial, because it has allowed you to do two things. Your sort of focus on this core mission has allowed you, one, to continue exploring sort of a singular design vision. And I think what's important about that is that it allows consumers to learn about what you're doing and keep up with you. What I find that a lot of designers, they work so fast that most of their fans don't even know what they're doing. They come out with so many designs and they keep changing things up that only a small number of people can really follow and understand. But when you sort of work on a similar design for now 10 years, it gives a lot of people an ability to easily grasp what you're doing, which makes you as a brand approachable. And I think that many designers, it's not that they're too fast, but they're too ambitious and the market can't keep up with them. And so your ability to stay interested, and I think that's what's important. You're still interested in this design after 10 years later, right? That's remarkable, but that's also lucky for you, because consumers, again, who approach you totally get what you're doing. And then on top of that, you resisted a huge, I'll call it pull in the industry, which is to go high-end luxury. And I think it's a very common situation, and it's not really about greed. I want to explain it for people who don't get it. You start a watch brand and you recognize that if you want to sell a high volume of product, you have to be a fundamentally different type of company. You have to focus on industrialization, and you can't sort of have the hobby business. So what people end up doing is charging more per a watch so they can sell less and enjoy it, but ultimately that makes their products less competitive. You've resisted that urge, and your watches today are still extremely competitive. The vast majority of them are under $1,000, some under $500. And yes, you've had a couple of models higher here and there, but for the most part, you've remained very affordable for those people that understand you. And I think that those two factors alone are extremely important in your success. And I want to know if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, well, I do agree. I think that since the beginning, we didn't want to do luxury item. And this shows, because we are doing... now we have an entire lineup that is called tool watch, but more or less all the Unimatic are tool watch. So that was one of the cornerstone on which we try to build our brand. And these today, as you said, it requires some kind of mindset to keep going this way without
discipline.
Swaying. But I think it might also be smart in a world in which, to me, most of the big brands in the watchmaking industry today, they are doing luxury. They are not doing watches anymore. It's just luxury that expresses itself through the media of the watch. But I can see Rolex closer to Hermes than to someone else that is doing proper watches. So our bet, of course, is on a very small niche of people, is to do a watch that can serve its own function while being nice and well built. And this is not the modern description of luxury, but this is what is, in a way, luxury for us. And we think that is an enjoyable experience that is made achievable for many because, as you said, our prices are too low. And so it's possible for many people to enter this world and hopefully to stay inside with the news that we propose during the years. And then on the other end, you mentioned that sometimes we go in uncharted territory of a slightly higher price. Yes, this to me it's very important, and I love to do this when we have the occasion. Meaning that when we did the mechanical chronograph or when we do the titanium GMT, of course these watches are more expensive. These watches are more expensive to make, and these watches therefore are more expensive to buy. But what we think is that we have a very fair value proposition, and so we don't try to price by the perceived value, but we try to price things according to the costs that are involved. It's a very nostalgic and altogether.
We call it a cost plus method, and it's the way you win customers, because when you don't do it, as you said, based upon perception, it's based upon manipulation, and that's not a pure way of selling, right?
Yeah, maybe this also go together with something else that I forgot to mention, because exactly because we started this as a small side project while we were having our own job. At the same time, when we see that people was somehow receptive and people was buying, we start thinking, and I still have in my heart the idea of building a company that will survive me. And I don't care how little this could be, and I don't care on the fact that this other brand or that other brand that maybe is young as mine now do 2 times or 3 times our revenue. I want to have something that lasts 100 years. And for doing so, I think that we need to avoid, as you said, manipulation. And we need to build a relation with the customers that then will bring new customer and new business. And then, in the meantime, if we are able to grow as we wish, that's very good. Other than that, we can stay like this for the rest of our life and be happy and carry on a nice life in beautiful Via Cappuccio. So we are not greedy, and we prefer to stick to the plan and to be consistent, both ethically and product-wise, with what we started doing back in the day 10 years ago.
So I want to talk about what's behind you on the wall. For those who are just listening, can't see, there's a collection of hammers. And when I was fortunate enough to visit Giovanni's office in Milan, I was shown your nice collection of hammers. And it was funny because we were talking about sort of the fetishization of tools. And you're like, oh, you should see my hammer collection. And I think that's so important because it goes back to what you said about it being a tool versus a status item. And watches can be both. They can also be art. They can also be rare treasures. Watches can be all kinds of things. But I think a large percentage of people who really like watches as a hobby are invested mentally with them as being a tool first. And you really, really like tools. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your own interest in tools and how that helped you create the sort of purist approach. Because again, I think the ability to distill, to remove the unnecessary elements, which is such a crucial element of good design, has helped you. But you seem to really, really like tools. So liking tools makes you look at this watch purely as a tool, and I think helps a lot. And I just want you to talk a little bit about the design process of designing a tool versus designing, again, a luxury or status item.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit we spoke even before about the fact that when you need to design a tool, or even without having to design the tool, when you're just using a tool, you are in relation with some kind of form that is embodied, and it's the actual physical realm translation of the concept of hammer, for example. And when this is good, even without preliminary knowledge, you just feel that it is good. And these apply to a hammer, to a knife, to a screwdriver, to whatever you might use, or to a pencil or a pen. And for me, it's like the form to allow the function. And it's also, there is another parallelism together with the watch design and the process that we do at Unimatic, because the progression in design and in ergonomics and in the measure of things, it's very, very progressive. And mostly it comes from, anonymous designer that through thousands and thousands of years of at least hundreds of years, they perfected the concept on how to nail things or how to break out things with a hammer. So most likely someone started with the coconut and the hammer, and then someone put a nice stick to it to be stronger on this. And then hammer in particular, but these apply to many other items, there were some specific function to be solved. So you have the hammer that is made out of wood to work with leather, or the large one when you need to do this particular assignment, or the very tiny one that you need to put in tune the piano. So it's nice because it shows how the archetypical function of, I don't know how to say this word in English, but striking things is always there. There is no need for decoration for most of the hammer, let's say. And then there are some sub-branch in which with this or that modification, the hammer could fit this function or this other function. And so this is very interesting to me. It doesn't go only with hammer, but goes with everything that is built for a scope. And so I don't have a proper collection of knives, but I have a few in front of me. And maybe some are a little bit more expensive and fancier, and some are not. But it's all about the one that you want to use to open the brief when someone handles me one. So that's the thing. And that's also, in a way, the difference that lies between being a luxury brand or a wannabe luxury brand. These happen most of the time. And being a company that does something that is not so maybe fancy and glittering, but it serves a function and is well made. And of course, in our opinion, is also very good looking.
I think this is such an important conversation because the philosophy behind what you do and how you do it, of course, has a huge impact on the end result. And I think that's important for people to understand the process behind the products they like. And as you're talking, I'm realizing another difference between, we'll call it tool watches and luxury watches. And I've noticed this for a long time. Now, a luxury watch is sort of a composition unto itself. It doesn't need to be on anyone's wrist to be appreciated, right? It's almost like a museum piece. It's just supposed to make you say, wow, look at all the effort, look at all the materials, look at all the value they packed into a small space. It going on someone's wrist is almost secondary. But with a tool watch, it's less about the object and more about the wearer, right? You want someone to look at it and ask themselves, where can I use that? I want to use that immediately. For me, the sign of a good tool is the psychological desire to want to use it. And I think that goes a lot into what you're doing. You're creating a tool that people want to wear and incorporate into their lives, as opposed to an object that they want to get and celebrate just for itself. And again, wearing it is a secondary thing. And I think that, again, that's a huge distinction. Luxury brands are trying to sell a desirable object. You are trying to sell an emotionally compelling item that inspires you to do things you might not otherwise do, or to enjoy the things you already do more than with the other tools that you had, right?
Yeah, you very well interpret one of the many reasons why we want to do something that is fairly priced and people can use, and also why we are not that fascinated with the luxury world, because we are just naturally attracted to what you described, and so to things that are nice to use and not just nice to behold or just nice to show off in some cases as well.
One of the major things that you've done as a brand is not only have limited editions, but do a lot of collaborations. And your collaborations are not only very diverse, but one of the things they all have in common is they're all very good looking. And, you have this beautiful wall. And if you make it to Milan and can somehow see this, I encourage you. But there's a wall of basically every single Unimatic watch made. And I've never been to another brand. It's basically had every single watch they've made right there to see. And it's incredible to see it all together. It really is a different impact. But when you look at the collaboration watches you did, again, they're all very good looking. And that is definitely not the case with a lot of collaboration watches with other brands. What, in your opinion, is responsible for these collaboration watches each just really being good looking? Is that because it's you? Is it about the partners? How does that come about?
Well, I don't know. It's because most likely, jokes aside, the reason why they are good looking is because we were very lucky in being able all the time to pick or to be picked by someone that was already sharing something in the way of intending the product with us. What I'm trying to say is that we don't go and knock door and say, hello, Todd Snyder, shall we do a watch together? No, this is not the process in which the collaboration is born. And these apply to everyone, and you can check with the counterpart. Somehow we crossroad with people, and when we crossroad, 99% of the time nothing happens, and it's perfectly fine. So we are not pushy to do this with this or with that one. While on that 1%, there is some kind of vibration that can keep two companies also very different together. What we realized, and it's one of the most fascinating things for me, and is also one of the reasons that give me, the energy to get out of the bed and come here for the 365 day in the year and just be focused on this, is that the product, the watch that we do, it seems to have a lot of different facets, and it's able to speak to a very eclectic mix of person. Meaning that on one end, we are here speaking with Ariel Adams, that is, of course, a watch guy. And then maybe in 1 hour, we will be speaking with someone that studies into tailoring. And then we have an architect, and then we have an artist, and then we have a car collector or a pilot. For me, the true miracle we were blessed with is to have an object that can speak in a way, maybe because everyone is focusing on this facet or on that facet, I don't know, but it's transversal to a lot of person with very different background and attitude. These translate into the, let's say, and thank you, the goodness of our collab, because when we are speaking with Miara Yasuhiro, that is this, avant-garde fashion designer from Japan doing things that are, 10 years in advance in comparison to what the other brand will do. Maybe Miara himself help us in highlighting what the elements that can be touched without lessening the entire product. And this goes with the many other partners. So someone is more interested into the, let's call it military heritage. And so maybe the approach it will show in the final product. And someone else is more interested in doing something that is funny, because some criticism that we get is that we are a company that do black watches all the time, black, always the same thing. So in some specific occasion, we like to take a day route also to, a little bit to fuck up with the people that is out there watching what we do. And the final answer after this long day route, it's that to me, the good result of the collab program X or Y is all about having a natural connection with the other company and some kind of organic development in which, of course, we want a little bit to control the final outcome, but we are very, very happy to let other brands or individuals to try to hybridize our DNA with their value and with their angle on this product, and on not just our own product, but with their own angle on watchmaking and on tiny scale object.
Thank you for that. I think I understand you perfectly. And again, this goes back to something I said earlier about how you've distilled down the essence of ToolWatch. The reality is the core look that you like is a core look that many other people around the world like. And I think what you've created is a good canvas, if you will. So people see it, and even if they're not watch nerds like me or like you, they have enough of a relationship with timepieces to be like, oh, I know what that is. And so it stimulates their imagination. So by distilling down a design, you've democratized it such that a general population of designers or consumers understand it, and enough of them, like you, say, I have this perfect idea. Let me give you my idea that's built on your canvas. And so you're lucky because you've unintentionally created a lovely canvas.
Yeah, well, you are right also in this. I think it goes back, you were speaking about the archetype and trying to find the very essence of what a diving watch is, or what a field watch is, and so on and so forth. So when we are, trying and somehow able to spoil with all of the unnecessary parts and the decoration and whatnot, then you get to something that is close to the archetypical idea of what a diving watch look like. And so these, in some fortunate occasion, it translates exactly into a canvas, into some kind of a platform on which Ariel can build his imaginary or real construction, and the same apply to the many other people that we are meeting every day, and the one that at some point decide to do something with us. So you have a point, and to keep this platform clean and integer, that's our daily job.
I want to change topics to a business decision that you've made, and I think it's an interesting one. I want to hear more about it. If you go to your website, or you sort of understand your collections, you have certain core models, and you actually have very few core models. And then, of course, you have the collaborations, but you also have a lot of, we'll just call them limited editions. And I'm curious how you segment your collection between ones that you continue to make, because I think some of the limited editions, if you made more of them, they'd still sell. So how important is this limited edition release cycle for the business? And how do you make the decision between what is limited and what is made in a larger volume?
Yeah, well, keep in mind that for 7 or 8 years, we only did limited edition. Limited and unique edition, meaning that if we say we have 50 NASA watch, that's it. It's 50 NASA watch. We are not making 51 or creating some shortcuts. And this is the way we started the business with the first batch. It was 300 pieces, individually numbered. And the 300 was just because we were, able to afford these 300. That was the minimum amount of pieces
that you could order
to keep a price, that was somehow consistent. So we started like that, and then after 7-8 years, we introduced the first carryover lineup that we call it Classic. And in a way, the Classic is exactly what we were speaking just a few seconds ago. So it's to me, the most archetypical version of our product. So it's like if you take mentally all the wall and all the archive of what we did, and you try to keep the only elements that are always there, you get to the Classic lineup. And that's the reason why we have the Modello Uno Classic, 2, 3, and 4. At some point, maybe we will introduce also the Modello 5, and these will stay the way it is. It only comes in one colorway, that is black, because we are the black watch company, as they mock us. And then it gives you psychoanalytically also maybe the easiest point of access, also budget-wise, before maybe getting into a Swiss movement or a titanium one or a particularly fancy one. And that's about the Classic. And lastly, we introduced the Tool Watch collection. This is, let's say, the entry-level price-wise, but it opened up for us a category that is challenging, because many people, when they hear that the watch is quartz, they lose their interest because they are some kind of, mechanical watches connoisseur. We don't care about this, and we do some very lovely quartz movement watch under the flag of Tool Watch, and these are built with some kind of movement holder together with a gasket that we fit between the case and the dial, and this makes the watch able to withstand too many shocks. We send these to have some drop test, and we have a certificate for that, and I'm wearing myself a watch that was drop test 3 or 4 years ago, and still it's running and going around the world with me every day. So these it's let's say a family of watches that are intended for the people that is out there and is using the watch and is looking as an actual tool and not as something that you want to show off the aperitivo or to post on the Instagram on the Porsche steering wheel. Then you can also do that, but you can also use it to use the hammer or to go hiking or swimming or whatever. So these are the core and the never out of stock, let's say, offering. Everything else still is limited edition. And we do like the limited edition because we said it many times, but we are industrial designer, we are not businessmen. As you said, maybe on quite a few specific reference, we should have done more. We could have sold more, but it's a trade-off. We like the most and we like the better to be able to go on in a process and to have a number of release. And sometimes these are very successful. Sometimes maybe they are a little bit slower in selling out, but we don't care. If we did something because there was a reason to do so. And then, of course, when these cross with the commercial success, we are 2 times happy, but we are happy nevertheless. And these are, in my opinion, it's something that it's enable Unimatic to be in touch with our own, let's call it, small community of collectors and customers and friends, but also hopefully to speak with someone else, because I don't want to hide myself behind one figure, because when we do a watch with a prominent streetwear brand, we are able all of a sudden to speak with their audience, and their audience all of the time it's 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times bigger than our own. And so we like to bring the message, and then someone will like, someone will not, but maybe they will help us both in the sales department, but more especially in the brand building department. And that's the final scope of my activity in here and our activity in here.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And with the tool watch, I want to remind people who don't know that the quartz movement you use has a sweeping seconds hand, like a mechanical one. And I think that's very, very clever, because one of the things that I know a lot of quartz watch people kind of don't like is when the seconds hand does not line up to the marker. And it requires a quite sophisticated assembly or movement to make it that perfect thing. So you not only avoided that problem entirely, but you also created a semi-mechanical look with your tool watches. And I think that makes your quartz watches quite different. Last question that we have time for goes back to this topic of limited editions and experimenting. And the question is, how do you do this? Let's say in the future, you want to make, I don't know, let's, for example, a blue titanium watch. And you say, oh, but we made a blue titanium limited edition, several years ago. Oh, but we want to revisit it. How do you effectively revisit it? Of course, not going and making more of the other one. Do you make a slight tweak? Do you just change the color blue? What's the right way, in your opinion, of revisiting something that, there's a lot of popular demand, you're curious about it, but you, of course, don't want to make people who bought the first ones upset by saying you're making something that's similar? What's the right way, in your opinion?
Well, I wish there was some kind of perfect recipe. I don't think there is one, but you said we don't want to disappoint the people that bought the first one. Yes, of course. And even before that, we don't want to disappoint ourselves, We want to be able to look at everyone in the eyes and not saying, the white NASA watch was very successful. I only did 50. I should have done 5,000. I could have marketed it very successfully. And so now we are doing it, same thing. No, that's not what we want to do. And this, again, links back with the scope of building something that is long-lasting. And we want, even if the money amount is small when it comes to Unimatic, but we want to give to our collector the possibility of having something that in the worst case scenario, it just withstands its value. In some occasion, and we have a couple of auctions that can testify this, you also did a very good investment. If you buy a NASA, if you buy the SpongeBob one, if you buy a Biotop, we have quite a few references that went, like 10 times the retail price or something. When it comes for us to the desire to explore more one region, we try not to copycat, and we try to perfect what we did before. So the Pro Diver lineup, it's quite a good example, in which the original Modello Uno was a diving watch, and then in our opinion, of course, we think that the following model, U1D, was presenting some improvement in the graphic design, for example. And then we introduce at some point the use of Swiss movement, and some people seems to like Swiss movement better than Japanese one. And this also allowed us to make a case that was a little bit slimmer in comparison to the one that we use for the Japanese. And then we took the next step and we went into titanium. And then we added up the ceramic bezel insert and the dual lume glowing up. And then we raised the water resistance to 600 meters. So improve the thickness of the case back and the lens and the case construction itself. And so I think that we have some aesthetic development that we bring on every day. And also we have some technical road to be taken. There are a number of improvements that we do. Maybe some they show, maybe some are more subtle. And also there are opportunities that maybe we couldn't have back in the day, and now we have. So access to this material or this movement or this technology. So we don't look back and try to pick something in the archive and say, okay, let's redo 100 of these because it was successful. We try genuinely, and then maybe sometimes this doesn't show, but to evolve what we did before in a meaningful way and having something better than yesterday and slightly worse than tomorrow. So to have a future and not only a past to look at.
It sounds like you have at least another decade's worth of ideas. So even if there's a lot of challenges, you and your team seem very, very busy. So that's fantastic. We're out of time, and I want to let everyone know that they can learn more about the brand at the unimaticwatches.com website. Giovanni, is there any other places on the internet you recommend people go to learn more about the brand or yourself?
Well, aBlogtoWatch.com, of course, and jokes aside, the only website we have is that one, and so that's the best destination you can go.
Thank you so much. This has been the Superlative Podcast interview with Giovanni Moro, founder of Unimatic. Giovanni, thank you so much.
Grazie mille, Adam. It was very interesting, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.